Hey, what is up, my fellow golf ball addicts? Welcome back to the channel. We have a triple review for you today. This is a new series from Bridgestone this year, the E12 series, one of our least favorite golf balls of all time, has a completely remade new look and 2 additional golf balls in the lineup. So let's dive right in. Guys, as always, if you appreciate this content, please like, subscribe, comment, all the free stuff that really helps the channel out. I appreciate everyone. We also have memberships that just start at $1, so you can just support the channel further, and I can bring you even more content. So like I said, Bridgestone E12 in past years, I won't sugarcoat it. It was one of my least favorite golf balls. I think it was bottom 5 for the last 2 years. Did not like the feel. Did not like how low the ball came off. Most people I talked to were in the same boat as me. I have a couple buddies who flat out will not play it if they find it on the course. If they pick it up and find it, they will throw it right back down in the water or whatever. They have no use for it. So it definitely needed a rebrand. So when I was at the PGA show this year and Bridgestone came to me and was like, hey, we have new, we have a whole new model, it's 3 of them, we've rebranded it. I was really excited because this is definitely a golf ball that needed that like nobody's business. So let's go ahead and dive in here and see what we're working with. The first model we have, of course, is the Bridgestone HiLaunch golf ball. So what this is designed to do is this is for the player that obviously needs a high launch. If you're someone who just can't seem to get the ball in the air very easy, which is very important for beginner and intermediate golfers. A lot of guys think, from the tour packaging, you need a nice low penetrating launch. Not always the case. Sometimes you need to get the ball high up, so that's what this one's for. Next up, you have the E12 Speed, which this is going to be for the guy who needs a little bit more ball speed. A little bit of extra distance that's really going to get you there to the green. Sometimes, maybe spin's not as big of a factor for you. Maybe you play on a course with nice big greens and you don't need to stick them very well. Maybe play on a nice big championship course, and distance is the name of the game. Well, that's what the E12 Speed is for. And of course the E12 Straight, which really straightforward names. This is if you need the golf ball to go straight. This is if you're someone who has a slice or a hook, you're having trouble with penalty strokes, you're having trouble getting out of bounds a lot. This will help you stay more consistent and stay in play.
Okay, so real quick, I've had to re-edit this part so many times, very frustrating. So this is a 3-piece iometer covered golf ball that's $34.99, which at that price point is just okay. The reason I say I'm really frustrated is because I really feel like golf companies have to be more transparent about what we're buying, what we're purchasing. It's really, really frustrating for me even to not know how much, how many layers the golf ball is, what the cover's made out of, what the compression is. This is what Bridgestone says. So they say new optimal flight system, improved distance, increased forgiveness, innovative, available in white, matte green, Tiger Woods, Jason Day. That is all just marketing gumbo, and I don't understand that. Like, be transparent about what it is, because I looked online, I found 2 articles that say they're iometer covered, and I found 2 articles that say they're urethane covered. So which are they? I mean, that's very confusing for the consumer, and honestly, there's just too much competition now to have to deal with bullcrap like that. I'm sorry.
All right, so let's get into the design of the golf balls. Let's start with the HiLaunch, of course. Looking at the golf ball, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the E6. Not quite, but just the dimple pattern, the overall look. Got the Bridgestone B in there. These actually do carry over Bridgestone's mindset design from last year, which is what this looks like. Essentially, this is kind of Jason Day and his, mental trainer. They came up with this, and this is like the 3-ring system. You look at the red, and you do a progression. You look at the yellow, you do another progression. Then you look at green, you focus on the ball. It does work to a degree, but it's not for everyone, trust me. I'm not a big fan of it being used as an alignment aid as far as, lining your ball up. Otherwise, it looks and feels kind of cheap. It doesn't look like it or feel like it should be $35, but hey, that's okay. Moving on to the next one, which is the Speed. It looks exactly the same. I mean, I can't even, differentiate. If you come over and look here, it just says E12 Speed to let you know what it is. But other than that, it's exactly the same. Then we get into the E12 Straight, and this is the one that kind of gives me nightmares because looking at that dimple pattern right there, that's the dimple pattern that the old E12 was. It was this very weird circle in circle, hexagon, B, kind of like, deep ridge. They called it the contact, essentially, but that's what that reminds me of, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand how it felt. I thought it was gumbo. I don't know about that one. That one's already like my brain screaming at me, so we'll see. Now, here's the thing. Does it look cool? It actually does look cool, but I know better because I tested this golf ball a couple times, and I know what that's like, so we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. So, you know, a pretty basic design. I'm sure some people are going to want these to come in more colors. I'm sure some matte options would have been nice, but that's what you get for the price. So anyway, let's get out to the chipping and putting green and let's see what we're working with out there.
All right, I'm going to guess that the HiLaunch is going to launch high. Actually, no, not very much. Actually, that's not bad. Check up. It's okay. Not bad at all for, you know, being the HiLaunch model. Everything about that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I mean, it had a decent amount of checkup, just beautiful, right toward the hole, a nice soft buttery feel, a lot of bouncy ball, my goodness. Oh, I did get left spin with that, holy cow. So that's, yeah, that's 50%, that's really good. Okay, well, I thought the HiLaunch was gonna launch higher than that, but it didn't, so let's check on this one. Okay, not bad checkup again, really good. I mean, I'd call so far both of these around like the 50% mark. A little bit with the speed. Let me try one more time here, get a little left. Oh no, we got it that time. That was pure, that was good. So yeah, I would say 50% is really good there. It doesn't have a ton of backspin and checkup, but it's got just enough of left and right. You can control it and do what you want. That's kind of nice. There's my HiLaunch, so that's kind of weird, but good checkup though. I'd call that checkup pretty good, like 40%, 45%. But yeah, definitely a HiLaunch here. Yeah, not bad. You know, anywhere between that 40 and 50%, 50% on the high end. Yeah, no lefter. You can just tell that golf ball, the straight, is designed to go straight. Even when you try to put left and right on it, it just is 100% right down the middle. I guess that's what it's supposed to do, so I'm not going to hate on it. So I'll keep this real brief. All those feel really similar. Bouncy ball effect. I mean, a lot of just boing off of it. I mean, there's not a lot of feedback in the hands. There's a lot of spring. It doesn't take much to get them up there, but overall, I was impressed with the spin with all three of them. I think the straight is designed to go straight, so it doesn't have a ton of checkup, but it had more than I thought. I'd call it around the 35% now that I'm done with my testing. The other two at 50, that's really good. So let's get to putting. All right, HiLaunch first. Mallet putter, thick and heavy. Let's see what we got. A lot of chug effect there. Not bad. Boy, it's really hot off the face. I mean, seriously, it is ridiculously hot off the face. It takes almost nothing to get it there, which isn't a bad thing for beginner and intermediate golfers. You don't want to have to come back a lot. So, all right, speed. Oh, a lot better on the roll for sure. Put way too much on it. Again, a lot of spring, definitely hot off the face. Okay, cool. There's almost no feedback off the hands so far. It's just been pretty much a dead, you know, bang. It's like a bouncy ball feeling, but it's dead. Kind of like the Callaway Super Soft a little bit, but let's see the contact now. Yeah, they all feel like the same. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, they're all pretty much very, very close. The feel is no feedback. There's almost no sound. It's got a lot of spring in it. I like the roll on the final two a little bit better than that first one. That first one had a lot of bouncy ball, and that's because of the low compression. Let's try the blade putter now. This is a traditional blade, so let's see if that helps out. Usually blades aren't as hot off the face, so that'll probably help it with that. Yeah, you can kind of hear that one now, but that's because of the blade putter. Still a lot of bouncy ball. This HiLaunch still has some chug effect. Yeah, not a big fan of that. I would call the HiLaunch true roll like a 7 out of 10. It's not great. There's a lot of chug effect. It just springs off too much. It's got too much bouncy ball off the putter, even with the blade. Let's try this one now. This one, of course, being the speed. Okay, a little left again. Not bad, though. Really nice. Really nice feel. I mean, this one actually, you can kind of feel a little bit of feedback. Man, just close, but just like I said, really hot off the face. It's taken me a minute to get used to. Wow, got some bouncy ball there, got some chug effect. Let's try one more time. Okay, not bad. Yeah, honestly, it's hard to tell the difference. They all feel really close. I mean, there's a couple minor differences here and there, but most of you, if you had your eyes closed, wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Roll can be inconsistent. None of them are that great. Even the best is an 8 out of 10. Just not super impressed with the putting. And there's going to be a learning curve, right? There's going to be a big learning curve when it comes to this, because a lot of you are initially going to probably be past the hole a lot, and it's going to take that adjustment. Now, once you make that adjustment, it might help you, but until then, it's going to be difficult. Ugh, oh God. That mush, yeah. It's like it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like it feels soft initially, but it also has a really firm, like a really gut punch firm press in the hands. Maybe it was a miss hit. We'll try another one here. No, that's disgusting. You know, surprising enough, I think I like the straight the best, which is the one with the dimples I don't like. So maybe they have made some improvements to it. It's still not great by any means, but it's the best of the three, I think. Let's validate the parking. Oh yeah, no, that's the best feeling one for sure. Not sure what the compression is because Bridgestone won't tell me, but the straight definitely, to me at least, feels the best. Slight firm press in the hands, explosiveness off of it. The other two are disgusting. I mean, one of them feels like marshmallow, dead, almost like it's holding you back. The other one, the speed in particular, what I'm talking about, just too firm. It's like a gut punch to your hands. I mean, it really does, but then it does kind of have some softness. It almost feels like the outer layer a little bit is actually kind of light and fluffy, but then when you hit that middle core, that core is just rock hard, and not a fan of that, to be honest. That's probably the worst feeling balls I've done in season 5 so far. Haven't done a lot, but those are definitely the ones I don't like so far.
All right, let's talk some data numbers. Let's start with the 50-yard pitch. Of course, we're talking backspin RPM. Starting with the HiLaunch, we have a 7,997, which is basically just about average, so that's not bad at all. That's definitely going to get the job done. Then looking at the E12 speed, we have 8,240, which that's well above average. That's awesome. That's definitely going to have some bite and some rip back. And then the E12 straight at 7,540, so that's extremely low spin. That is by far the worst I've seen so far, or the lowest. Maybe worst isn't the right number or the right word, but 7540 definitely is not going to get the job done, and there's going to be a lot of you that are not going to like the consistent checkup and roll. Now, what's interesting about that is that the straight is kind of advertised as going straight, which of course means low spin. You're going to have less side spin, but that doesn't always mean you necessarily have to have less backspin too. I've seen golf balls that have amazing backspin, but also really forgiving side spin. The Top Flight Gamer is one of those golf balls. So I'm disappointed in that. But then you got the speed, which is all about distance. You know, that's going to be really low spin because you got to take some of the spin off for distance. Nope, 8,240, so interesting there, but we'll keep an eye on that. But those aren't bad, I mean, except for the E12 straight. Let's move on. We got the pitching wedge. We're looking at 122.3, 122, and 125.7, which the one that really stands out there is that E12 straight for sure. And then the other two are just slightly above average, so not bad. 122.8, 122.2, and 126.5 on the total rollout. Again, all above average, especially that last one there with the E12 straight. 95.7, 96.1, and 96.8. All of those, the first one is average, the other two are just slightly above, so that's pretty good. Then you have 6,926 with 7,229, and then 6,487. Holy cow. I mean, that is a ridiculously low there with the 6,400. The other two aren't bad at all. 3 different levels of launch, and what's surprising enough is that the HiLaunch didn't launch the highest. So really weird there. We'll get to more of that later. Yeah, so there's just a lot of average there. You know, the first thing I noticed is that the straight model had, you know, an extra 3-4 yards of distance, and I was like, oh, okay, it's got some pop off the club, excellent. But then when you see that spin number and you realize how low it is, well, yeah, now it makes sense. That's going to get you an extra 3 or 4 yards. So really, if I count that in there, these are all just really average numbers, you know, either average or slightly above average, which isn't bad. Let's move into the 7-iron and see if that's any better. 159.6, Wow, that's really low. 160 or 165.6. Oh, hey, that's really high. And then 164.4 is pretty good too. So you got one there with the HiLaunch that's just not that good. The other two are definitely above average, and those are really nice numbers. 161.2, 167.1, and 166.6. Again, same thing. The HiLaunch is unfortunately well below average, but the other two are well above, so that's good to see. 113.9 on your ball speed, 117.4, and 115.7. Okay, so finally, so actually what Bridgestone's advertising, 117.4, it had more ball speed, really good to see. I like the straight version. It had, you know, average to above average numbers, which is good, but unfortunately the HiLaunch there, that's just really low all around. 54.90, that's low on the spin. 55.62, that's mid on the spin. 5,164, that is just ridiculously low spin again from the straight. Okay, so I know that's a lot of data. You know, we don't always do triple reviews, so I understand you got to kind of sit there and really look over it for a moment. If you need to pause it, I understand this is still new. The big thing there is, wow, the straight has really, really low spin. I mean, ridiculously low. If you're wanting to stick a green with it, that's not the case. That is going to be, it's funny, I talked earlier about how the speed was supposed to be the one that is all about distance. It's not about spin. It's not about rip back. If you hit it on a championship course and you got a nice big green to work with, it can hit and roll up and you're fine. Not the case. That's actually the straight, because the straight has such low spin. I mean, you're not going to stick a green. If you're playing on a tighter residential course and, you know, you're looking to kind of stick a green that's really small, good luck. I mean, it's not going to happen. I can just tell you on those numbers, it's not going to happen. Now, the actual speed, the one that I thought was going to be the issue with that, not the case. The distance ball actually spins either well enough or above well enough, so that doesn't seem to be a problem. Really, the HiLaunch there with the 7-iron, just not good numbers. You know, low ball speed, low, low, low. That could be because I'm now over compressing it. It is definitely the softest golf ball of the three. It's intended for the slow swinger, the senior swinger, so I might just be over compressing it now. We'll have to check the driver numbers to see if that carries over. 219.6 on your driver distance, 219.7 and 217.7. All three of those are well below average. I lost about 4 to 5 yards with each one. 227.8, 228.6, 226.4. Again, just lost distance like crazy. 136.8, 137.2, 135.2. Again, all below average, unfortunately. Not going to get the job done. 23.27, 22.76, and 21.85. So that's actually the three bears right there. That's, you know, above average spin on the HiLaunch, mid spin on the second, which is the speed, and then on the straight, again, really low launch, or I mean really low spin, excuse me. So all three of those numbers are just kind of the spectrum. 1.41, 1.44, 1.41, below average, above average, below average. It's unfortunately not a lot of good there. 17.6 on your launch, 16.4, and then 17.4. All of those are above average except for the speed, which is just slightly below. It's basically a mid. Yeah, again, a lot of data there, but really it's actually it's pretty straightforward, right? Because when it comes to golf ball data, what I usually do is I look at the numbers, I see what I have. If I think there's something there, I'll dive a little deeper. If I find more I like, I'll dive deeper. But sometimes I don't dive deeper. Sometimes I can just kind of see it right there and I just cut it off, and that's the case here. All right, so let's talk some dispersion and accuracy real quick. I'm gonna pull up these charts. We'll just go one by one. Let's start with the HiLaunch, of course. Looking at this HiLaunch, oh goodness, you know, I just, again, I can't sugarcoat it. I know there's going to be some Bridgestone loyalists that are really upset by this, but this is unacceptable. The driver I always kind of eliminate because, you know, I'm kind of sporadic with the driver occasionally, but by far that's the worst driver I've seen from this year so far. It's all over the place. Distance control is not bad. It's mediocre at best. But then, like, look at the 7-iron. You know, I'm really good with a 7-iron. Those are all over the place. There's no consistency there. It's one of the worst I've seen, unfortunately. Then we get into the pitching wedge, and again, the pitching wedge, all those will stick a green, but again, there's a draw there. You know, the HiLaunch definitely has a little bit of side spin for sure. I don't like the distance dispersion at all. I don't like the consistency there. It's the best I've seen so far out of all 4 of those, but I don't know. And then you look at the 50-yard pitch. The 50-yard pitch is usually really tight for me because I just do a little half swing. I mean, it's very controlled. Look at the difference between my shortest, my longest. I mean, accuracy is good there. Look at that. It's all on the line. That's awesome. But I mean, like, when you're pitching with this ball, it's kind of a loaded gun. I mean, it's just flat out like it could be really short, it could be really long, it could be just right, it could be Goldilocks. I mean, those are just really disappointing. There's no way to sugarcoat that. That's the worst dispersion chart I've seen so far in season 5. Now, granted, we've only done 6 or 7 or whatever so far, but that's significantly worse. $35 a dozen for that? No, unfortunately not. Let's move on to the next one, which of course is the speed. And then the first thing I notice, of course, you know, I usually start with the 50 yard, but look at the driver again. I mean, the driver is just absolutely, I can't make heads or tails of it. I mean, you can take away the one pull way left. Maybe that was just me pulling it too much. But then even if you look at the others, it's all over the place. Definitely the worst I've seen, maybe in competition with the HiLaunch we just looked at. Looking at the 7-iron, again, the 7-iron's a little tighter because there's 4 that it looks like I pushed, but the other ones are really tight in there. So, okay, that's not the worst. That's not bad. That's average, okay. Then you get into the pitching wedge. Pitching wedge isn't great, but it is tight. It is consistent. That's not bad. So this is definitely better than the HiLaunch, but not by much. And then you get into the 50 yard, and again, that 50 yard is just all over the place. I like the accuracy, but the distance control, usually distance control with my pitching is just phenomenal because, again, I'm only taking half swings. So, again, it's not the end of the world seeing that, but I expected way more. Hopefully this last one can really redeem. Let's find out here. Let's do now the straight. All right, so looking at the straight, okay, so looking at the straight, we're in the fairway for the driver. That's really good. Distance control is really great, awesome. 7-iron, not bad. Accuracy is but distance control, well, yeah, kind of in there. Not bad. That's not bad. It really isn't. Pitching wedge, now that's the best pitching wedge I've seen out of all 3 of them. A lot tighter, a little bit more consistent. I would call that maybe like a 3.5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, getting close to that, so that's not bad. And then looking at the 50-yard pitch, it looks like I lost a little bit of my accuracy, but the distance control is a little better, but again, I've seen so much better than that from this year and from golf balls that have half the price point of this one. So a little disappointing there. You know, all in all, I'm trying to find positives. I'm trying to you know, sway it in a way that can make it sound okay, but I can't. It's not. Last but not least, let's get into durability. Let's, of course, start with the HiLaunch. Looking at it, you know, unfortunately, again, disappointing. This golf ball is just beaten to heck. It really is. It has lots of sandpaper effect if I feel the golf ball. You can see those abrasions in there, the dirt marks. That's definitely going to affect putting. It's going to affect your shots, your driver shots, your full shots with wedges, irons. Yeah, I mean, to be nice, I would call that maybe like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I'll go ahead and give it the 6 just because I don't see any major cuts or abrasions. And then I look on here right now and I see one. All right, 5 out of 10, sorry. Yeah, disappointing. What a shame. Then getting into the speed, looking at it, the speed is a little bit better. It's not tons better. It definitely has some more sandpaper effect. Looking around, I see a gouge out of it next to the B right there. Just a lot of feeling the golf ball. It feels bad. It does feel like there's a lot of rough patches. It is a little bit better than the last one, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10, but that's being very generous. I'll just be real with you. It is. That's the golf ball you would have to chuck after probably 3/4 of a round. And then looking at the contact, you know, again, I see some rough edges here. I see some abrasions. The sandpaper effect is ridiculous. It's out of control. No paint removed, which is good, but just a lot of sandpaper effects. So I'll call that a 6 out of 10 again. That's not bad. But all 3 of these golf balls, none of them are above expectations. So final thoughts. I know I for years have struggled with Bridgestone for this because I've had a love-hate relationship with them. I respect Bridgestone for what they do. I know they have all kinds of patents. I know they've been making golf balls for 100 years. I know their tires can take a puncture and still go another 50 miles. But here's the reality is that just because you have patents and just because you have previous success making the Nike ball for Tiger in, you know, the late 90s and him winning the Masters with it, even though you have all those great moments, that doesn't mean that here we are 25 years later, you know, 30 years later, and you still have that success. The problem I'm running into with Bridgestone is that their golf balls are just all over the place. You know, sometimes they tell me, oh, this one's supposed to launch high and it launches low. Or, oh, this one's supposed to be high spin and it's low spin. I ran into that with the Tour Series last year where, you know, the Tour BXS was like, hey, this is the high spinning golf ball. I got no spin with it. And a lot of the community, you guys didn't either. And then I play the X model, which is supposed to be the distance, you know, just, you know, firm 115 mile an hour, that's the best ball for me. And so everything Bridgestone tells me, it's almost like they have their fingers crossed when they're telling me, because none of it ends up accurate on the data table. I don't understand. And with that level of confusion and that level of inconsistency, it makes it really difficult to recommend their golf ball. Then you take that and you pair it with these mediocre numbers. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was the golf ball, the straight and the speed had really good 7-iron numbers. I give them credit for that. You know, the 7, I gained 4 yards. That's some of the best I've seen so far. But gaining 4 yards with the 7-iron doesn't make up for a mediocre pitching wedge performance, a mediocre driver performance, around the green, feel, no durability, no consistency. Do these golf balls have a market? They shouldn't. I mean, I'm sorry, they shouldn't. I hate to be that way, but it's just, for $35, you guys can get so many. I could list, I'm not even kidding you, I could list 50 to 60 golf balls you guys could get in place of these that would save you half the price, half the cost, and would perform better. So why on earth would you go here? Why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe if you just love Bridgestone, but even then, if you love Bridgestone, I wouldn't recommend these. I'm getting ready to test the E6. More than likely, I'd probably just recommend that one to you. So, disappointing. You know, I guess maybe Bridgestone just needs to take a step back, reset, and try again, but I just wish there had been more here. You know, there was a lot of potential. I loved this rebrand when I found out about it, but it just didn't hold up to the expectations. Guys, as always, keep watching, keep saving, keep learning. Until next time.